All right, man, peace. So, brothers, the great LeBron James of the Los Angeles Lakers recently came out and admitted that he was very near cracking, meaning what? He was on the verge of having a nervous breakdown in light of the poor play and the frenetic play of the Los Angeles Lakers. He's a player who is accustomed to things going his way, and due to the fact that he's been forced to try to implement himself within a framework and a system that he's unaccustomed to, this has caused a lot of consternation in his mind. Of course, he's not going to admit that because LeBron James likes to cast himself as a person who is amiable and who's amenable to changes and to coaches, etc., etc. But what I believe he meant by stating that he was about to have a nervous breakdown is that he was about to call for Luke Walton's job. But he realized he could not do that so soon because that's his nature. You have to understand, when people are put through adversity, whoever they are is going to come out. Whether it's 1 minute after the adversity hits them or 1 year, it's going to come out eventually. LeBron James is a person that when things are not going his way, he is going to break down. I'm not saying he's going to quit, but he is going to break down. That's the bottom line of it. And I think that through the acquisition of Tyson Chandler, that was not just to shore up the defense of the Lakers, that was also to shore up the mental frame of Mr. LeBron James. So that was a very important move that they made. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
No time in LA, and it doesn't seem to be turning around anytime soon, and the struggle is real for the King. Here he is opening up about what he signed up for, telling Chris Haynes of Yahoo Sports, "I haven't changed anything outwardly, but you know me, you know how I am, I almost cracked. I had to sit back and remind myself you knew what you were getting yourself into. This process has been good for me. I just have to continue being patient."
So let's look at what Mr. LeBron James states here. He says, "I haven't changed anything outwardly, but you know me. In other words, I can put up a facade." That's what I've been telling you cats for a very long time about LeBron James. He puts up a series of faces, but he cannot hide who he really is. And that's not to say that he's a weak person. He's not weak by any means. I'm going to say it again. LeBron James is not weak by any means. But what he is he's susceptible to adversity and stress. And just because you're susceptible to something does not make you weak. All that means is that you have an Achilles heel, as all people do. Once again, when LeBron James is put through adverse situations, when he feels like he's not in control, he is going to have a mental breakdown. And in the art of war world that we call competitive sports, if you're a high-level competitor, you have to be looking at this and saying, you know what? Let's put some stress on this guy. Let's bring out the flaws in his teammates, because he's the type of person who'll get more stressed out by seeing his teammates not respond well to a certain situation than he will himself. LeBron can get over himself making mistakes more than he can his teammates, because he believes that he's going to learn from every mistake that he makes. He's not so sure about that with his teammates. So if you're an opposing team, you want to put the Lakers in the position where his teammates have to think on their feet. And he's going to get very frustrated by his teammates' inability to think on their feet. Because once he's with the team for long enough, they have to play in the LeBron James system, which puts his teammates in a very precarious position, because now they basically have to read LeBron James's mind as opposed to run a real play.
He's also unhappy about his shooting from the free throw line and is thankful to Kyle Kuzma for getting another chance, saying, "I'm garbage. I stink from the free throw line right now. I'll get my rhythm back, but I thank Kuz for giving us another opportunity. He gave me another shot, so I tried to get him another shot." All right, let's marinate on all that first.
To be quite frank with you, I don't even think that LeBron James is garbage from the free throw line. I just think that he's just not a good free throw shooter. And he's somebody who gets nervous in clutch situations. So I wouldn't call him garbage. I call him a choker. He gets so nervous. But now listen to what Stephen A. Smith states in regards to his theory about choking.
For a second, Stephen A., are you surprised that LeBron said this?
Not at all. Not at all. I appreciate his honesty. He does stink from the free throw line at times in the clutch.
Yes, that's called being a choker, Stephen A. Smith.
That has been his Achilles heel, but that's one of the reasons that I've religiously told Max Kellerman he isn't choking at the free throw line. That's always been him. he's always been suspect. Even when he's made them, he's missed an awful lot of clutch free throws. He's a career 73+% shooter from the free throw line. But as the game wanes in the last 5 minutes, it hovers in the 50s.
Well, that means that it's a mental issue, Stephen A. Smith. That means that he is choking. Now, if he was someone like a DeAndre Jordan, who normally is known for being a poor free throw shooter throughout the game, then we could say that no, he's not choking because he just shoots free throws poorly. But if you're a LeBron James and you're overall about a 75% free throw shooter, but in clutch moments you're 45 or 50%, that makes you a choker.
You know, in clutch situations, you know, it hovers in the 40s. That's been him from the free throw line. That's who he is. It's not that he's choking or anything like that. He has never been a stout, big-time free throw shooter throughout.
You know, it's very interesting that they made this segment about LeBron James's free throw shooting when it's very clear by his comments that he's not saying that he almost cracked because of his free throw shooting. He's saying he almost cracked because of the situation that he finds himself in, that he put himself in, that being the leader of a bunch of neophytes on the Los Angeles Lakers. So they're trying to take what he stated and, you know, pretty much contort it into something else.
Throughout his career, it has never happened. He has always been suspect. You look at Kevin Durant and others from the free throw lines, they're in the mid-80s range. You know, tinkering towards the 90s. Don't get me started with the Steph Currys of the world and others. But in the case of LeBron James, that was one of the impediments to him. There was a time early in his career when a lot of us spectating about him thought he was scared to go to the basket, but only for one reason and one reason only. He doesn't mind missing a shot. He's incredibly courageous when it comes to taking any shot. But when it comes to him getting fouled and having to go to the free throw line, he is far more comfortable operating under duress and being defended than he is standing all by his lonesome and having to compose himself to hit a free throw.
Of course, because when he's shooting a jump shot and he's being guarded by another person, if he misses, at least he can say that he was being guarded. When you're on the free throw line, you have no one else to blame. You can't even blame the rim. It's just you're just going to miss.
That has been an Achilles heel of his throughout.
Also, if LeBron James takes the last shot and he misses, he can always say, well, you know, the play wasn't ran right because so-and-so was not where he was supposed to be, so I had to pull up.
Out his career, there's nothing new there, and that has a lot to do with him being honest enough to say what he said. It ain't choking, because choking, you know, like I told you before, Max, my definition of choking is when you do what you do all the time, and then palms get sweaty, and then all of a sudden you can't do that. LeBron James, when it comes to the free throw line, this has been him.
Very slick. Think about what you're doing. I don't even think you know what you're doing. Let me point out, everyone, what Stephen A. did. You're defining choking a certain way, saying it's just a change in your normal behavior, right? Like there's something, you're getting different results now than you normally get. Then you're saying, since he always chokes on the free throw line at the end of games, it's not choking for him on the free throw line when he misses shots at the end of games. It's even by your definition, the very definition.
Totally agree, Max Kellerman. You got him with this one. Stephen A. Smith sometimes tries to create and concoct his own definitions so that he can categorize certain athletes how he feels like they need to be categorized as opposed to what the facts show. If by your own definition, a choke is when you do something that you don't normally do because it's in a crunch time moment. So you're kind of confounding yourself, Stephen A. Smith.
Well, listen, throughout my career, I've continuously stated that.
Who cares? What does that have to do with the price of tea in China? Over the course of the past 25 years, you could have been doing crack. Does that make it okay because you've been doing it for 25 years?
Always held that position ever since I was a kid. My definition of choking is when you don't suddenly do what you normally do.
I get it, because by your definition, he's choking on the line because
absolutely.
Because you're admitting the numbers say it. He shoots over 70% from the line normally. Then at the end of games, it drops precipitously, right?
I got you.
At the
I
end,
understand.
So he is, in fact, even by your definition,
okay, well, if
at
that's
the free throw line.
If that's the case, he's choked throughout his entire career.
There you go, sir. There you go. Now we're getting somewhere. In other words, LeBron James is a consistent choker. That's what that comes down to. That's why he cannot be compared to the players that are in my top 5. Sorry, but he just cannot. Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Kareem, even Bill Russell. Even though Bill Russell was not somebody who was known for his shooting, but he brought so much to the table overall that, I'm sorry, you just cannot put LeBron James with a Bill Russell.
Where is it?
And
Okay,
what's
fine.
interesting about
All right,
that
that's
is-
okay. If that's what
Yep.
you're saying, for the free throw line, okay.
What's interesting about that is the distance between the basket and LeBron James doesn't change. No one's defending him, whether at home or on the road. Sometimes they're cheering for you, against you. That, you know, it is really all about you at that moment. And if his performance falls off under those circumstances, nothing else, nothing changes except the time and the score in the game, then that really is a LeBron issue. So am I surprised that he came out and copped to it? No, I'm not surprised, because that's who LeBron James is. No shame in his game. He's transparent. He lives in the social media age.
LeBron has enough success that he can look into the camera and tell you what he knows he cannot do and what he knows that he's not particularly good at, especially if it's glaring. Right now, he's a 4-time regular season MVP, a 3-time champion. If he has an issue at the free throw line, he's going to let you know. Now, something that he's never going to admit is that he avoids big shots and big moments. He's always going to say that I'm going to make the right pass, so on and so forth, especially since in the last 3 to 4 years, he's become far more aggressive in crunch time moments. And there was an era before 2010 where LeBron James would habitually take the big shot. It's just that around that 2010 area, Skip Bayless started to harp more and more on how LeBron is not a crunch time performer, and LeBron started to listen to those whispers a little bit too much, and it got into his head.
As you say, he manipulates it or exploits it well. You're right. He didn't enter the league this way, but he learned over time. I think as KD is learning. I can't live up to expectations of what whoever the fans want me to be, the media want.
That's the worst thing for you to ever do in life, is to be concerned with what other people think that you should be doing. As long as you're not breaking the laws of the Most High or the laws of the land, to hell with what other people want from you. For the most part, the people who spend all their time trying to tell other people what they should be doing, if it's not something pertaining to keeping the laws of the Most High or the laws of the land, those are people who are woefully dissatisfied with their own lives.
It wants me to be. I'm not going to be able to hide from it anyway. Everyone can see it. I'm just going to cop to it and live openly and honestly. That's awesome of LeBron. It's unsurprising. But Stephen A., it does point to the difference. I hate to bring this up, and you and I frequently do. When you're talking about the greatest player of all time, it is tough to say it's that guy when there's another guy whose numbers at his best were a little bit better. And Michael Jordan on the free throw line at the end of the game, he ain't almost cracking. He's just knocking them down.
Well, look, Max Kellerman, here's the thing about that comparison. It never really was a comparison, other than to these modern-day super liberal, woke, internet revolutionary people out here who want to factor in points for LeBron James because of quote-unquote social activism and things like that, and want to concoct all these silly reasonings about how Michael Jordan did not face great competition like LeBron James did. All this nonsense that truly can't be quantified. But nobody truly believes that LeBron James is better than Michael Jordan. At least nobody who has their head on straight. When we talk about LeBron James, to me, he's in that same group with Wilt Chamberlain and Shaquille O'Neal, Tim Duncan. That, to me, is his area where he should be evaluated. But when you're talking about Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Jordan, Kareem, Bill Russell, no. No, 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 no.
Well, you also got to remember, you and I had a debate. We went back and forth when we were debating who would you want the ball, whose hands would you want the ball in when it can't.
And to be quite frank with you, there are many people who can make quite a compelling argument that he should not even be argued with Tim Duncan, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Shaq, and those guys either. I think that he is, but there are people who would tell you, how could you put him in there with Tim Duncan when Tim Duncan won 5 out of 6 world championships? And, of course, that's true. And really should have won 6 out of 6 if it wasn't for Ray Allen and Greg Popovich taking Tim Duncan out of the game for whatever reason.
Counted. And I said KD. Why? And the number one reason I brought up to you is that I didn't trust LeBron James to the free throw line. And sometimes numbers do lie, because, Max, we can sit up there and we can talk about how, I'm saying, well, you know what, his percentages get worse as the game wanes. But the reality is that on a lot of situations, you know, you find yourself at the free throw line more during the earlier part of the game than you do late in the game. So let's say, for example, you sit up there and you might shoot 73% from the free throw line, Max, but you went to the free throw line for the first 43 minutes of a game 100 times.
Right, but Stephen A. Smith, what does any of that have to do with the free throw percentage? At the end of the day, we're not talking about shots that are more or less contested. It's a free throw. So even if you shoot 10 free throws in the first half and you only shoot 2 free throws in the second half and they both come with 30 seconds left, they're still free throws. You should be practicing your free throws before and after practice or on your free time or whatever before the game. So it's not a matter of how hot you are at the free throw line. It's a matter of how well you're able to screen out the distractions that are going on around you and focus on the basket. That's it. So let's not try to make too many excuses for why LeBron James chokes from the free throw line in clutch moments.
But in the last 5 minutes, you've only been to the free throw line 8 times, and you miss 5 of those 8 free throws. So the percentages can be misleading to some degree.
No, there's no real way for a free throw percentage to be misleading, Stephen A. Smith. You just frustrated that Max Kellerman embarrassed your theory about what a choker is. That's why you're floundering right now. But no, he's correct. A free throw is a free throw. Now, if we're going to evaluate 2-point field goals, then we could say, well, one player shoots 60% and the other player shoots 45% because they're taking different types of 2-point shots. One player is getting mostly layups and the other player is getting mostly long-range 2-point shots, 2-point jump shots. And that's why one player has a lower shooting percentage than the other. But when we're talking about free throws, they're all standing at the same line. They're all shooting at a basket unimpeded.
Degree. What I'm saying to you is that LeBron James is not a great free throw shooter. Most often than not, I'm booking him to make 1 of 2 in a 2 free throw shot situation.
Well, Stephen A. Smith, if you believe that every time LeBron James goes to the free throw line that he's only going to make 1 of 2, then that would make you an idiot, because that would mean that you assume that LeBron James is only a 50% free throw shooter. We know that he shoots 75%. So if his free throw percentage drops precipitously in clutch moments, that means that you should expect him to shoot 1 out of 2 in clutch moments. But overall, over the course of the game, you should assume that he's going to hit 3 out of 4 of his free throws earlier or in the early parts of the game, really upwards of 80% of his free throws in the early parts of the game, because in those clutch moments, with 30 seconds left, he's going to miss 1 or miss both.
Assuming he's going to miss 1 of them on at least half the occasions he gets to a free throw line. That's just what I've seen from him throughout his career.
Well, that makes a little bit more sense, that you assume that he's going to miss half his free throws half the time he goes to the line, because that would equate to about 75%. But what the conversation is about is his percentage dropping precipitously in crunch time moments, not overall free throw shooting. So let's stop trying to avoid the crux of the conversation.
His career, which is why I say it ain't choking. He has always had an issue shooting from the free throw line consistently throughout his career.
Yeah, when it matters most. When it doesn't matter as much, reliably.
Well, like I just said, if you get to the free throw line 100 times and you make 70 to 73 in the first 43 minutes of a contest, but in the last 5 minutes of a contest, you get to the free throw line only 10 times and you make 4 of them, excuse me, that's like 40%. I'm just saying, the numbers don't tell the whole story.
Stephen A. Smith, brother, please stop. If Michael Jordan shoots 85% from the free throw line for a season with 30 seconds left, he's going to shoot 85%. Larry Bird shoots 90% over the course of a season. With 30 seconds left, he's still going to shoot 90%. Okay? The conversation is that LeBron James shoots 75% from the free throw line, but with 30 seconds left, he's shooting 40%. That's the conversation.
There's a consistent level of inefficiency.
Yes, that's called choking. That means he's consistently choking. Yes.
See, from the free throw line for LeBron James, period.
You're wrong. Period.
All right, they host Portland tomorrow. Gentlemen, back to the NFL.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. Really what LeBron James' comments were pertaining to was him admitting that he was on the verge of a mental breakdown, of a nervous breakdown. And it's becoming more and more common for many of the NBA's more high-profile stars to state that they're on the verge of a mental breakdown. So, you know, something may need to be done about assisting these players with how they're handling pressure. So, peace.